Hi there. I'm here with Shalin Amin from Uber. Uh, Shalin is the lead experience designer at Uber. Previously, he was at Hot Studio, and he's done projects with Gilt Group and TripIt and Tesla and a handful of other really delightful companies. So, hello there. How are you doing?
Hi, Katie. How's it going? Good.
Pretty
Thank
good. So, I guess to get started, I just was hoping that we could let some of the Delight attendees get to know you a little better and hear what you're doing over at Uber and get a sneak peek into what you'll be talking about this fall.
you. Okay.
Great. So to kick off, I guess, tell us a little about yourself. What were you doing prior to Uber, and how did you get involved in experience design over at Uber?
Yeah, so I graduated from school from North Carolina State and then moved out to California to go to do the Academy of Art. It's really a school that didn't require a portfolio, so got in pretty easily. And I studied new media, which is basically figuring out the fundamentals of design, understanding core applications such as Flash and the Adobe Creative Suites. And really, after that, I just did an internship, kept on working, and eventually ended up at, I was mainly working as a consultant the whole time, but really ended up at Hot Studio and stayed there for about 4 years until I moved to New York to help them expand their New York office. And that's where I got a chance to work with great companies like Gilt Group and Hearst Publications. So did that for a while, got really tired and bored of working on projects that you would meticulously spend hours and hours on, and then only to see it launch in the real world is something different. And so decided to kind of build my own products, and I decided to build a startup based around, surprise, photo sharing stuff, and got pretty far, launched the product in the App Store, and I really had a great time building a product, but I tried to raise funding and just couldn't figure out how to do that. So I looked into 500 startups and Designer Fund, and really tried to raise funding that way through different channels and different avenues, but nobody would give me funding because I hadn't built anything from beginning to end. So that's how I kind of ended up at Uber.
Great. And so what is your team like now over there?
The team is around 30 plus designers, comprised of visual designers, user experience, IA, mobile focused researchers, and really just building a craft around, or a discipline around, a variety of folks that specialize in things but are also generalists. What we like to kind of call, what people have called like experience or product designers, or these unicorns. Yeah, so we have a bunch of folks that are just really focused on one thing, but we're continuously learning about other skill sets just through building products.
Sure. And so I know you're in San Francisco. Is everyone based out there, or is your team kind of scattered?
So the entire design team is based in San Francisco. We have offices all around the world, but design as a discipline is basically in San Francisco. We're three parts. We're basically product, marketing, communication, and brand.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I imagine it makes it a lot easier to kind of just meet for some ad hoc type things and jive off with each other.
Yeah, I mean that's been great so far. I think the trouble is figuring out how do you communicate and meet the needs of different cities. We like to celebrate the cities in wherever we go, and so making something that's unique for Japan versus Dubai is drastically different. So it would be great to have designers on the ground in Dubai and Japan, but it's just not sustainable right now.
Mm-hmm. What types of design challenges do you come up against in that scenario? I mean, I know nothing about the transportation scenario in Dubai, but I imagine it's complex.
Yeah, I mean, we face the same kind of regulatory challenges everywhere we go. It's a pretty old industry that we're trying to work with, and yeah, the problems are slightly different, but almost always the same. So.
Mm-hmm. I know here, even in Portland, we're still rooting for Uber to come around over here. I know the regulations on this front are pretty tough to break through.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. But so what opportunities and experience design are getting you and the team excited these days?
I think the most exciting thing for for me is helping to build a design discipline in a company that's very engineering and product focused and operations focused. It's, you know, the CEO and founder is an engineer at heart and a product person, and so showing off not showing off, but creating value for what design can provide for an organization is a really tough thing. And so we do it every day, slowly chip away at it, and try to provide value for the org, and kind of being design advocates to a certain degree, teaching engineers about design, the value of it, the process, teaching product folks, teaching our awesome GMs and CMs and driver ops people. But it's just a process, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I love building design discipline most of all.
Yeah, so I know you kind of built the Uber experience specifically kind of from the ground up when you started a few years back. So what was kind of the most challenging part of bringing that all together?
Well, we didn't really have anything when we started, right? It was just basically a logo. And we did have an app, right? It was all built out of core iOS components. But we were building a brand and kind of extending it at the same time. We were building a product and then extending that out. And then finally we were building a team and extending it. So there was a lot of challenges around just kind of starting something from nothing and kind of building it out into something that's really speaks to the lifestyle brand that we're trying to communicate. And it's a difficult task because you try to find inspiration in transportation. And it's very hard to do. It's really hard to find a beautiful limo service website out there.
Yeah.
You know, so those are the main challenges. It's really helping to define what the brand is and how we can represent Uber and what we do through our visual communication as well as products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
The other big part is like we're an international company, and so how do we communicate and understand the cultural differences between different countries and regions, and just taking that into account when we're building products around language and internationalization around type considerations in a small mobile screen. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, in looking at the Uber experience as a whole, kind of across, even cultures and regions and things, there are a handful of on-demand car services out there, and increasingly so. But I think, like you said, Uber does really have a very strong look and feel and a distinct experience. So, can you talk a little about how the Uber experience is different and how you guys are continuing to differentiate yourselves?
Sure. I think the Uber experience is different. You can just tell by the app itself and trying different experiences. I think we were one of the first to kind of pioneer, obviously, the Uber experience with pretty much effortless experience. We focus on every part of the journey. Really, we think about considerations for a user from when they open up the app to when they're in the car and when they're on the trip. What are the motivations and what are the behaviors that they're really engaging in, and try to craft features or experiences or stories around that to really help expand the experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And since Uber was kind of a disruptor in this industry, how did you guys approach the whole onboarding experience?
Yeah, so we don't really onboard customers. Our belief is that the UI and UX should guide the user, providing a lot of informational text or instructional text. I think you kind of have failed as a designer if you weren't able to kind of guide the user through your app to tell a great story. And so we provide simplicity by focusing on just priorities. Everything can't be a priority. I know a lot of people want everything to be screaming and large and upfront, but as designers we have to focus and make sure that people understand the main priorities of a page before moving on. So we tend to do a lot of prioritization.
Absolutely. And to your point about word of mouth, I mean, I think you guys just do a spectacular job. I remember back out when I was living in Boston, it was just like Uber was the cool thing that everyone wanted to take to and from the events, and
yeah.
Very, very community driven for sure.
Yeah, I mean we've never really focused in our first years. Well, first years when I was there or here at Uber, we just never really focused on any marketing. Just didn't need to, right? The experience is so solid that people would just love to share it with their friends. Mm-hmm. And there were built-in perks, obviously, give 10, get 10, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely got a few of those.
Yeah.
You guys are ubiquitous. You're everywhere. So what are some of the core considerations at Uber when you guys are designing new features or dreaming up new ways to tweak the experience?
Yeah, I mean, what are the needs of the customer? We have a growing research team that keeps us informed of the needs of both riders and drivers. We focus on and prioritize the needs of riders versus the needs of drivers versus the business. Those are the main things that help us kind of understand what we build next. We look at a lot of customer tickets, a lot of issues around driver issues, and we try to adjust and course correct based off of that. But I would say a lot of research on our end, a lot of data and a lot of metrics from a product perspective, and course correcting that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, data is one of those things that we're constantly trying to get feedback on as we're improving our experience here for our clients. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, data is one thing. It's being able to parse that into useful information, and that's thankfully we have a great product team. We have great researchers that are able to kind of do that for us. Mm-hmm. People who specialize again in those skill sets. So it's been awesome.
Sure. Yeah, and it's I mean, getting customer feedback is definitely a theme that has come up in previous Delight events, and I'd love to get a little sneak peek into what you'll be talking about at Delight, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm still noodling on a couple of ideas, but the challenges of building and scaling a design team at a hyper growth company is really interesting. I really want people to walk away from the conversation or the talk with something that they can use in their day-to-day life. I think a lot of conferences have a lot of people talk about process, and for me, when I've gone to conferences, I just haven't been able to kind of use those things tangibly. And so I think one of my biggest passions is growing a design team, and I'd love to talk about my failures around that and my successes. And as design plays a larger role in building products, I think a lot more people are going to be going through those same kind of pain points. And so really sharing with the community around my pain points in growing from 2 designers to almost over 30. There's a lot of just things that people should be aware of, right, and consider. So I'd love to talk about that, and there potentially could be something around making products at Uber, or organizing the design team to kind of what are some of the best practices around that. I'm not really sure exactly, but got a little time to work on that. So yeah.
Yeah, you've got some time.
Yeah.
So what are you looking forward to about coming out here in October?
Portland. I mean, I love that town. I love all the food trucks. And fall will be a great time to come out there. I'm interested in meeting the community of people in Portland. I haven't really met a lot of designers from Portland. You guys have quite a few great startups. I'm really just interested in meeting and seeing how that environment's different than the crazy startup world that we live in San Francisco. I'm sure it's pretty aggressive there as well. But really just looking forward to meeting the community out there.
Yeah. Well, it'll be a great week for it. We've got Design Week kicking off on Saturday the 4th, and then extending through the week. So we'll have hundreds of designers buzzing about for you to connect with and everything. So
super excited.
We're really excited to have you. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with me and a little peek into what you'll be talking about. And I'm really excited to see you in a few months.
Yeah, same here. Talk soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.